Hello, internet friends, and welcome to episode number 212, 212, a whole freaking lot of these things. We haven't done a spec show in a little while because Shadowlands is kind of on the horizon, so what the heck are we doing here today? But it is that time again to talk about the whole Healer DPS and Disciplined Priest versus Holy Priest and what healers are looking for the next expansion, because we might only have so many of these shows left before the Shadowlands Alpha Beta stuff starts kicking off. But my name is Adam KK Bay. Welcome to the show today. And we'll see if you're looking for or looking forward to the Shadowlands testing that I do, all these expansions in a row. That will happen in some way, shape, or form. The first pass, whole second pass thing, depending on what the Alpha Beta servers give us. That'll depend on what we have at our fingertips when that all starts. Later on this month, I have no idea. Every other day, it seems like another tweet from Mr. GM is like, it's starting tomorrow. And then it doesn't happen. So we'll see when that comes around. But I would not be sitting in this chair doing this show and talking to you guys on the internet and making the all the beta testing stuff without the help of you lovely nerds and ladies out there that are supporting the show, the stream, and everything in between directly over on the show's Patreon page. That's where a lot of the BTS stuff goes. There is additional behind the scenes art. There's art we curate every end tier. Now we may go back and do a couple more that we hadn't from the past. Yeah, and when of course we have the after show, the BTS podcast, sort of the off script extra jibber jab that goes on. If you are interested in supporting what I do here directly, then you can go check that out right now. Down below on the links there on YouTube or on Twitch. We're at 218. How many audio posts? They just changed this again. I have no idea how many we're at. We were at like 76, 75. This is the BTS from last week's show right here. And it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. 330. You can go check that out if you like. There's a lot of extra show if you'd like. The fun part is to go way back in the time capsule and listen to what we were talking about like 2 expansions ago. But of course, the entire archive of the show is also over on the show's YouTube channel, where it goes back all the way to Mr. Pandaria, if you like to go back that far. I would suggest not going back after the first 70 or so episodes. I wouldn't go back that far. That's a little bit rough, but that's up to you. Of course, all the BlizzCon coverage from the past. See, there was all the beta testing for Battle for Azeroth. Oh boy, Battle for Azeroth beta testing. But you can go back, check that all out if you like. That's all linked down below. But the big core shout out here at the top of the show is the new developments that have happened here. If you haven't been around for a while, FinalBossTV is now partnered and sponsored by Corsair and Elgato. So if you want to support the show, the stream, and everything in between in a more physical sense, and get yourself some bits and bobs and pieces and parts for upcoming build for your current PC or a new one on the horizon, you can of course go check out that as well. We do have a link where I can get you free shipping as well as 10% off on your external bits or on your Elgato gear. If you're looking for lighting setups, if you're a photographer or so, if you're looking for that macro deck with the stream deck, I have a couple different graphic designers that have reached out to me and talked to me about how you can do all the different Photoshop or After Effects macros just in the board itself. So it's not just a streaming tool, but of course, links are down below for all of those things. But today's show, Holy Priest, Disciplined Priest. We have some new guests on the show, some fresh meat, if you were. And first up, if you can understand him in this little introductory, that's fine, because I might not be able to do the whole show. I'll need a translator. But TG, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Well, I'm TG. I'm the Holy Priest for Mayhem, and I wish you the best of luck on understanding what I'm saying today.
But you're used to talk about how much better Holy Priest is than Disciplined Priest is, right? That's why you're here?
Definitely. You know, I want to build the Holy Army.
Wait, well, phrasing, but I get what you mean.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And then joining you today is Hunttay as well. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hello, happy to be here. I am Hunttay. I play Disciplined Priest in Vodka and NA. I also play Paladin and Mythic Plus, and I've done keys for a while as well. Some people might know me from there, but yeah, that's me.
You do keys. What's your biggest key?
This expansion, like I think a 23,
Ooh.
24. I don't remember. Because I didn't push as high this expansion as I did in Legion.
Well, that's a sentiment shared by many, actually. Yep.
Legion was my prime time. I'm kind of washed now.
Uh-oh. You're washed up. Well, I'm going to go back to you real quick on that then, Hunttay. So if you want to expound a little more, how long have you been dabbling in the World of Warcraft? How long have you been healing in the World of Warcraft? And have you always, or were you a convert to the healing side of the game?
Yeah, I've been playing since November of 2006. I played a lot of stuff before I found my main in a rogue. In late 2007, I mained that rogue until the end of Mist to Pandaria. At that point, I played Mists casually, so I was playing a rogue and a priest. And DPS had to sit in like 45-minute LFR queues. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to try healing. So that's when I started healing in MoP a lot. And eventually I found a guild to heal in, and I just healed on my priests since then. Started as Holy, played Discipline a few times, but mainly Holy until the start of BFA when I kind of just went all in on Disc. So it's my little history.
Well, shout out to Jack, who's not here on the show today. He is out and about in the IRL MMO, and he's also out next week doing the Keystone Masters, but he immediately told me to poke you about this. So he has your blessing to talk about Discipline today. So it's a heavy burden. You good to talk about? You sure?
Yeah, I think I'm honored, you know. He would bless me with the opportunity.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And is there any resources or guides or math that you're sort of a part of in your whole time right now in World of Warcraft, and what you help, curate out there for the community?
I don't do any of the math because I am not 5-head enough for that, but I'm an admin over in Focused Wood, which is one of the it's a Discord specifically for Disc Priests. So I do that. I help people out there. I stream progression for the most part and answer any questions there. Because I do a lot of feely crap because healing is just one of those things that can't solely be based on numbers.
Sure.
It's a bit more volatile, but yeah, I've also in the past written a Mistweaver Monk Mythic Plus guide over on WoW. It was discontinued after Resto Druid was just the king of Mythic Plus, so people aren't really using other guides. So hasn't been updated since 8.1, but it's there. I contributed to that.
Well, maybe if things turn around in that sort of way for Shadowlands, maybe you can get back into that. Who knows?
For sure.
Now, TG, I'm not to run this joke into the ground, but just in case we can't understand you the rest of the show, if you want to give us the rest of your little intro bit there, what do you dabble in World of Warcraft? How long have you been part of the healing nature of it? Have you always played priest?
Nope. So I started back on Wrath of the Lich King, and I was a paladin. And I was a vet paladin that had healer gear. Had no idea what I was doing. It was very interesting. And it wasn't until about Mr. Pandaria where I thought about healing on the priest for real. And, from Mr. Pandaria onwards, I've just kind of like stuck to my priest. I was a discipline priest and converted to holy priest in Legion.
Oh, wow. So it's also rather recent then, too. Both of you seem to have that. Like, you don't have, well, some of it, you bounce back and forth to it, but it does seem like it's a Legion into BFA sort of changeover, yeah?
Like, I think what done it for me was I wasn't the biggest fan of the Atonement when Discipline got remade into that Atonement style, so I just thought I'll play the other spec, and I ended up loving the reactionary playstyle that it has to offer.
Oh, gotcha. And then do you, because I mean, in relative names, I mean, the whole point of my show is I bring on new people from the communities that are sort of part of this or that and the other, right? I know that everyone sort of wants to hear from only certain people, but that doesn't always encompass the entire spectrum of how things in the community get organized. And shout out to Nafir for helping me get guests on the show today as well. One of the big mods and admins in the How to Priest Discord, the I guess Warcraft priests now, and putting all information together. Responsible for a lot of that coagulation of information, of course, over on that end. But TG, do you take part in any of that theory crafty, math crafty, feels craftiness that helps?
Again, like Hunttay, I'm not 5-head enough for that. But
Aw.
I'm a mod there, and I help the players out, and go through the logs, see if I can see stuff to help them down the bosses.
And the real question that I need to ask, but that everyone else is wanting to know now too, your name. It's just 2 letters and 3 numbers.
Yes.
Why 4?
So my name is Tyler, so it's just my initials, and 530 is just an easy number to remember. Like when I was 12 years old, I made a RuneScape account and I couldn't remember the username, so I had to make a new account. And tg530 is something that I came up with, and it stuck with me since I was little. And come Blizzard, they try to not allow the numbers, and I just thought, wait a minute, I've actually got enough space to fit in the 5-3 and then just put an O.
Yeah, your name that I put on your lower third is what your character name is, so it literally is all spelt out: TG, then 5-3, and then the O. Yep. So I noticed that when I looked up when you sent me your armory, and I was when Nafir said that TG is interested, I was just like, who? Just 2 letters? But I guess we have THD in limit, right? So it's a couple of those. And then to open this up, because there's a couple of topics here that we'll be able to pinpoint on who can shed light on all of this. But I would say between Holy and Discipline, this is the only spec, which is a weird one for me to make a show of, because I had said before at the beginning of BFA that I do every single spec one show. But it's hard to break these 2 apart because they kind of always have to be talked about in tandem, because it's the only class in the game that has 2 healing specs that compete with one another. And they're both priest. So it's definitely had its share of tumultuous iterations over the past where one shined over the other, like the whole expansion or the absorb meta. Like if you go back to, I want to say like Warlords was like the really problematic time when it was just spam shields, by the way, and then cows everywhere. Just throw cows at Clarity of Will, rest in peace. But so we'll take a trip back in time and open the gates for your personal thoughts on what you two have absorbed within the priest or your own, communities overall, going across BFA. But all the way back to Mists, to Warlords, to Legion, to now, are there pieces of the priest puzzle from past expansions that you want to see return for Shadowlands? Are there versions of either one that you miss from the past? Take us back, Hunttay. What do you... TG. Yeah, go for it.
Like, I got to say, I really loved the Legion Holy playstyle, at least with the talent choice Divinity, where it gave you 15% more healing when you casted a Holy Word for 8 seconds and then it got nerfed to 6. But it really allowed you to plan your cooldown, and there's no RNG with like the current corruptions and all that stuff. You could pre-plan it to get like an extra bit of healing from your cooldowns, and I just loved that simple little playstyle which they've removed. I'd love to see that back.
What do you echo with that, Hunttay? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so this has seen quite a few iterations since Mob. Mob was when Spirit Shell was a thing, yeah, and that's kind of like when Absorbs just kind of just ran rampant because it bled into a WoD where pretty much the meta was just Disc Priest spamming Power Shield on everyone, Paladins putting Illuminated Healing on everyone, and it kind of made healing with those 2 healers very unfair because there's pretty much nothing to heal anymore. You also had things like Divine Aegis, yeah, and like Legion saw a lot of that thrown away. Like, the only healer that was left with the ability to put Absorbs was Disc Priest. However, Power Shield was put on a cooldown in Legion, and Rapture removed that cooldown. So that was like pretty much the only Absorbs back in Legion. And I think overall that was a healthy change for healing in general in the game. Disc Priest aside, getting away with absorbs, it allowed for other healers to be able to express their skill. But I think definitely echoing like the Legion sentiment. I think Legion Disc had a lot of nuances with the TOS rework. I know a lot of people missed Light's Wrath. That was a very cool tool that Disc Priest had, because now you just kind of have your evangelism ramp, and that's once you have that, you're doing all this healing, and then when that's over, you're kind of just there waiting for the next ramp. So like Light's Wrath definitely was something that helps smooth in those gaps, and I think just having an extra tool to be able to like utilize more ramps that you have access to would be something that people would enjoy more. I think I would enjoy more. People love being able to have buttons to press.
Yeah, it would probably take some backtracking to see what the priest show was in Legion to compare the thoughts at the time. I can't remember completely. It was like 2 years ago. But I always thought that besides the fact that Light's Wrath was very fun, right? And obviously you had that huge prep, the big ray damage spike would happen, and you'd bam, Light's Wrath, you basically heal it up with this essentially a targeted damage to healing revival in a way, which I believe toward the end of Legion always healed more than revival, which sure, poor Mistweaver monks. But I don't know how much that was enjoyed at the time versus a necessary evil to how raids were designed, because you don't have anything like that now, or at least the same potency, but you still have that same ramp window, right? Healer talk right now, you always have that, raid damage is in. I don't know how many seconds you guys need beforehand you ramp currently right now, but you have that 8, 10, 12 second window before stuff happens. Our Disc Priests always call for, innervate me. There goes the ramp. Here comes the damage. There goes the healing. So the same kind of play style, but I've heard a lot of, at least just the murmuring feedback, that Discipline now does play minus Light's Wrath like the best iteration we've had in previous expansions. Is that echoed from you guys? Do you agree, disagree about this current compared to previous?
The thing with Disc is it got that major rework at the start of Legion, which wasn't as successful. But then TOS saw further reworks with the addition of Evangelism and Radiance on charges, and that made the spec a bit more accessible to raid with. Because before it was like, you needed a ton of external mana to make the spec work, because Radiance only hit 3 people, cost a lot of mana, etc., etc. I think right now, it's in a pretty good spot where you have access to a lot of healing even without Evangelism, because you can still throw out a double Radiance, throw out a Schism, and that's where a lot of Disc Priest healing is right now. And like one of the sentiments that have been echoed throughout the entire expansion is that too much of power is put into Schism. Disc Priest is getting nerfed kind of across the board, with penance damage nerf, across the board damage nerf, this damage nerf, that, and it kind of makes the spec feel a bit worse to play in areas that aren't raid, and then it just remained meta throughout the entire expansion. And that, one of the causes of that is Schism, because it's a very short cooldown, lines up pretty well with your ability to ramp, and it just gives you a ton of healing. So I would say that it's pretty balanced right now in terms of fun to play, because you have access to healing a lot, but it's also a bit like, well, you always have to play this, and you're always going to do this. It's very planned. There's not a lot of wiggle room in what you can play. There's been a little bit of a meta shift this year with talent choice, but yeah, for the most part, it still feels the same as Legion. It's still pretty fun, but yeah.
I'm just going to say I kind of agree. It's currently in its most balanced form since I can't remember, since I've been, looking at Discipline, because the Auto Atonement in Mr. Pandaria was pretty ridiculous with how easy and smart heals were working back then. You could just snipe it, like all the healing. Ward was just not fun for your co-healers because the shield, just wasn't much healing to be done. Again, like you were saying, with the amount of mana needed for the Legion Disc, like if you could have that mana, you really just nuke the cooldown, the Light's Wrath and your big ramp ups, and it was, I guess, a little bit unfair for your other healers because all the externals are fired into the one spot, and they've done the heavy lifting, and I think this expansion, they've kind of allowed other healers to kind of show what they're capable of, and not let it be, demolished by any other healing spec. Don't get me wrong, they are obviously very strong, but just
Yeah.
allowing the lesser healers to put in work.
Well, I'm hovering over on the Webhead guide right now. This has been the one outside of Clarity of Will, which was a little bit more egregious than Powered Shield itself, is that Powered Shield and stopping damage from happening, right? Absorbing damage before it hits players. And in this sense, right, so PWS doesn't have a cooldown per se, but obviously you cannot shield the target again for 7.5 seconds currently. But the coupling of stopping damage before it happens on raid-wide hits, of course, your big raid-wide cooldown now, or at least one of the huge ramp window is Rapture, which allows you to spam your powered shields to get your atonements out there. And then, of course, on top of that, you get to stop damage from happening as well as react to it going on. It's also the ever-present discussion of healer DPS, right? So you get to do all of that, stopping damage from happening, reacting to damage with these ramp windows. But then you also do a lot of damage. It's like you and Holy Paladins have had that argument for a very, very long time, that's the biggest tipping point towards, should healers do meaningful damage? Should healers do no damage? Then how do healers do anything in the open world? Well, just respec a DPS spec, forehead. And it's been this really back and forth, expansion to expansion, where it's been either way easier, or you had all like remember back in Mists of Pandaria, all the different healing specs. It was all the different triage this and free healing procs that the healer itself didn't feel like you did as much as all the random crap that happened. So how does, and TG, how does the difference between, say, the healer that stops damage from coming in and does a ton of actual DPS while doing it, compared to like the bag of tricks and all the throughput and tools that Holy has had, but Discipline still gets brought to higher end content, or you still see Discipline at the forefront of like the Race to World First or Mythic Plus keys? Like why is that still a thing? Is it just the damage?
I think it's, mainly just the damage and the fact that the damage reduction, with the barrier and the pain suppression, just that part of the discipline kit alone just really makes Holy obsolete in a really bleeding edge kind of scene. But, I think even if Holy were to get similar DPS as the discipline, I think they would still bring discipline due to the damage reduction at that point. Because usually at a higher end, you can avoid a lot of the silly mistakes that Holy Priest can cover very easy because it's very reactionary.
Sure.
So I think even at the very top level, I think discipline would still be brought. And I think if they were really wanting to shake up the balance of healing, I think you would have to go along the lines of giving the other healing specs similar utility that, Holy Paladin and Discipline have as well. And then you weigh up the utility against damage, and it makes it more, I guess, fight-based rather than a clear-cut option.
Yeah, it's the prevailing winds you've had from show after show after show, with how it must be tough in the discipline camps and the holy camps within Blizzard for the development team, and how they can make this not always feel like it's one ship that sails and one that stays docked. But I mean, Hunttay, you were talking a little bit before we started the show about how healer balance though isn't actually that bad right now, except when I bring up the top end because damage matters. But overall, what do you guys absorb about the balance therein?
So balance right now, I mean, if you look at overall logs on Warcraft logs at like 90 percentile, I mean, it's pretty close. Like all the healers with all the tools that they've been given throughout the expansion, with the addition of extra traits in 8.1, essences in 8.2, corruption in 8.3, they're all pretty balanced in terms of being able to do throughput. There are obviously some outliers like the new Mistweaver Monk build being able to reach this insane top end, but for the most part, overall, on average, they're pretty balanced. And then when you look at top end, you know, it's top end for a reason. You're trying to squeeze out as many like advantages as you can get, right? So when you have something like a Disc Priest and a Holy Paladin, if everyone's pretty balanced and doing the same thing, kind of, you're going to want to take the guy that's giving you an extra 20, 30k DPS, giving you an extra 25% raid-wide damage reduction, all this other kind of stuff that really gives you an advantage over other options. So, of course, that's, top end stuff.
Right. So then, looking to, are there any parts of the other iterations from other expansions and you want to pinpoint? Obviously, Light's Wrath. And what TGU said, what was the talent
Divinity.
again? Divinity, yeah. For Holy Priest. Is there, because that's the one thing that I have written down here, right? So the only thing we have confirmed for Shadowlands coming back, right, that Halinka, the great unpruning, is the relaxation of a few spells confirmed to no longer be spec lock, just be priest spells. So the ones from the keynote in 2019 BlizzCon were Mind Blast, Flash Heal, and Shadow Word Death. The big one that I took away from that was that Shadow Word Death would just be baseline again under a stupid talent for Shadow Priests, which is like a huge thank you, right? Big Peppa hands. But that doesn't seem like it's going to do anything different. That's just going to give, technically, Mind Blast is another button that would do damage to a tone for discipline. And then just be a random button you just hit for damage as Holy. And then Flash Heal is just going to replace, I guess, Shadow Man that might just get yeeted to just get Flash Heal back in there. So those outside of Shadow Word Death to me don't seem crazy unless I'm missing something. TG, do you want to, is there anything more you would like to add to that list, hopefully?
Well, I would personally love to see, like I said, Divinity and prayer mending, interactions. Like in Legion, when we pop Divine Hymn, our prayer mending stacks would bounce around the raid members, healing them. And if you really, planned out your cooldown and made sure you had a couple of stacks out on the raid, it really did implement like a solid extra bit of throughput. But again, like Holy's always been known to blast the HPS. We need, I guess, a little bit something different to allow us to maybe be viable at the super top end.
Okay.
But then you're making classes the same, I guess, at that point, or to give Holy damage reduction. But the damage increase, like from Mind Blast and that, sure, we'll take it. Do more damage than Smite in that. Like, if it's a really intensive progress boss, you can add in a couple of extra K DPS or whatever, and it could make the difference for making a push on that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to like be demeaning at the Mind Blast coming back baseline, if that actually works, because that's the interesting part you notice about when you play, when you do DPS as a healer. And I think Discipline obviously has a lot of plates they're juggling with their Radiance, with their Rapture, or if they're just using Power Word Shield to weave in, of course, to get their atonements out, yada, yada, right? And then they have the choosing there. But a lot of their DPS rotation is basically just Penance and Smite. That's all you really do.
Totally. Yeah.
But, and then say like for a Resto Shaman, you put the sauce on and you throw a meatball, and then you throw lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, meatball, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt, meatball, lightning bolt, meatball. That's all you really do, right? So I actually, that's the argument that I bring up, is that Holy Priest actually has a bit of a rotation in their DPS, but they don't ever really get to do it So I wonder if the potency there, adding a little bit more of that, like, because Mind Blast is obviously a short form cooldown rotation, like big hit. I wonder if that would help. And Shadow or Death on all priests. But then I wonder how that's going to work with Atonement, because it's an execute. So,
Yeah, like if they give that actually as atonement healing, I can really see all the Discipline fans being quite happy that they're getting another Solace button, basically. You know, like an extra big ramp healing button that they're allowed to do inside the window of healing, which could make them, I guess, really, really, really strong.
yeah. No, yeah, Hunttay, do you have anything you want to add to Linka's potential list?
Yeah, so I think the big thing, that's obviously is probably that's not everything, but you know that just about a baseline, those abilities could have different interactions with the different specs. So you know, Mind Blast could give something to Holy when they use it. You know, they use Shadow or Death. Like that would be the main thing, because obviously Disc would get Atonement interaction, and that would be the value there. And they could min max Schism windows a bit more, because all you really do in a Schism window is Solace, Penance, Smite. You know, if you add Mind Blast and Shadow or Death to that, and you know, that makes it a bit more nuanced. So for Holy, it would have to have some interaction with the kit if those spells were to come back. I like you were saying, the healer rotations, a lot of them are very simple. So I think going forward, if they wanted to incorporate healer DPS more, I think they should either nuance rotations a bit and make them have more interactions with the rest of the kits to make them a bit more appealing. Like we see Mistweaver Monk, the Rising Mist build that's been creeping up.
Yeah.
You know, it's a simple rotation, but you know, it forces you to min-max how you're pressing your buttons, right? So actually giving you a reason to DPS that, you know, that can make other healers more appealing to world first progression potentially, because healer DPS becomes such a important topic in that discussion.
Right. All right. So wrap this up for me real quick then. What if there was something that you, either of you, or the community maybe at large, or chat, is there anything in the priest kits for Discipline or Holy you would like to see removed going into Shadowlands? Something that you just can do without, just get it out of there. A talent, an ability, something. Because I don't know if there's anything you'd want to be removed unless there's some sticking point somewhere.
For me personally, at least from the Holy point of view, I'm completely really happy with the kit. So it's like it's really hard to want to remove anything. I guess Holy's good, although I wish they would change the interaction with Binding Heal and the renewal talent that we had in Legion. Basically, it allowed you to renew your renewal on 3 targets when you use Binding Heal, but now it's only the main target in Binding Heal. Like, I just found that quite fun with the Antorus tier set.
Okay. A chat, I read in chat right now. Remove Desperate Prayer, provide a useful defensive. Desperate Prayer is just a super health stone on a big cooldown, so.
Yeah, Priest has always lacked an offensive for the, not always, but the past 2 expansions, that's been like a pretty big deal. Because in Legion, I'm pretty sure Desperate Prayer is a talent, it wasn't even baseline. And so, you know, Priests and higher Mythic plus Keystones, probably the most egregious example. You know, Priest didn't have an actual defensive to use against Hurge's Lightning Bolt or Xavius's Nightmare Bolt. And so you just kind of die if it picked you. And so, you know, that when BFA came out, one of the big talking points is that we're giving defensives to everybody.
Sure.
To you know, allow more diversity within Keystones. And Priest just got Desperate Prayer as a baseline. And there's a point where abilities are hitting hard enough to where damage reduction is going to be a lot more valuable than a max health increase. And pretty much every spec has either an immunity or a damage reduction that allows them to deal with this. And all Priest gets is Desperate Prayer. And it's funny because Priests have had tools that could deal with things that are, you know, akin to other classes' immunities or defensives. You know, Greater Fate is a PvP talent. Spectral Guise in the past, I believe, could be used to avoid some mechanics. And so seeing some of those get added in Shadowlands would definitely be a big plus for Priest, both Holy and Discipline. Like I said, those are the two specs in the game that just don't have an actual real defensive.
I think I saw Spectral Guise come up in chat as well, too. Yeah. Well, all right. So shift gears, and Hunttay, take the reins on this one because this is what Jack said you'd be able to talk about. All right. And it was kind of woven in the earlier part of the show about the let's crack the egg on the Mythic Plus scene. And things are a little bit crazy right now, but this might be the best, if not second best, season we've had with Awakening, the AKA Shroud of Concealment, the mini bosses, the route, the Mythic Plus dungeon season. So where does the divide in discipline versus holy happen in keys? Does it depend on key level? And I'm putting on the spot here too from the before the show went live. You basically said that when you apply to like pug keys, you just put either and whatever I guess they ask for you would heal as, or if they don't tell you, you would just play as I guess whatever tickled your fancy at the time. But is there a break point there? Do you prefer to do keys as holy or disc, or how do you decide?
So going into this expansion, disc was like very good. I did beta keys as disc a ton of the time, and then a lot of people were playing disc at the start of BFA, and it was a pretty good spec. So my personal preference is disc. I like the damage it brings, as well as it has a good tank external.
Yeah.
Barrier still good in Mythic Plus. The disc still has Rapture absorbs, which is really useful for some things, like the Jagged Nettles on the Waycrest Manor boss. But yeah, I think kind of most keystones that people are doing, around anywhere from 10 to 15, maybe 17, doesn't matter which spec. You can play any healing spec in the game. But I think once you start pushing, 19, 20, 21, I think that's where disc is going to start edging out of value, because some boss fights is just the fight goes on long enough and you're like, well, I'm out of juice, I can't heal anymore type of deal. And having that extra healer damage really helps from the disc priest that holy can't really compete with, because even if holy is able to just smack DPS buttons the whole time, it still doesn't have the same amount of tools as disc and the ability to do damage. But yeah, in terms of that, it's like play whatever spec you want. But if you're looking to seriously push some high keys and grind out that IO, I think disc edges out a little bit more there. And it's also, in my opinion, a bit simpler to play, because in raid you have to worry about ramp timings. You only have so many globals, get so many atonements on X amount of people in a raid. But
Right.
5 people, Radiance hits 5 people, so you never have to worry about ramping. The only things you really have to worry about is if you take Schism, how you're using Schism, where you're utilizing it, how you're using Rapture and separating your cooldowns and the like. Because especially in those higher keystones, it's like very important to not stack your cooldowns. Like you don't want DPS using their big defensives if you're using your Shadow Fiend or using your Barrier or Rapture or whatnot. Whereas Holy struggles a little more because I don't think the cooldowns that Holy gets are as potent. They don't have any damage reduction.
Yeah.
Apotheosis is a pretty good tool to get a ton of holy words out. On that topic, I think Apotheosis should be a baseline thing for Holy Priest, because Holy Priest really lacks having a good baseline cooldown compared to something like Pally Wings. Divine Hymn gets that 100% modifier in 5-mans, but it still doesn't compare to the throughput that some other healers can do. And I think Holy just really lacks that ability to do single target as well as 5-man throughput on longer boss fights or bigger trash pulls.
Now, to juxtapose that, the art on this page is slowly getting cut off. Looking at the Apotheosis buff, I know this was like a big, basically the holy form cooldown that was definitely fought for and asked about going into this expansion. But TG, as primarily playing holy, then do you echo those sentiments as well? Do you actually do keys as discipline, or do you have no problem doing the keys that you do as holy, or do you get that that weird look from chat when you queue up as a holy priest?
Yeah, like I stick to my dungeons as holy. More often than not, they are glad that it's holy, which I guess they've just had a bad experience with this. Like, discipline is like Hunttay was saying, is a monster in Mythic Plus. Like, it brings so much to the table. But I think the corruption and the essences that we got in 8.3 have smoothed out some of the weaknesses in the single target healing from Holy. With the spirit of preservation, allowing you to have your flash heal stacks like to heal more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I've seen some of my crits for the flash heal being like 140k, which, you know, pretty massive. It's really good for keeping the tanks up. And with the CDR reduction corruption inside Apotheosis, one flash heal will completely bring back Serenity inside that little 10-second window. So you are really pumping out the big single target healings at that point. But we can't compete with Discipline and the damage and
Yep.
the group wide damage reduction either.
Yeah, so that brings up the follow up then. Do you, for Discipline, it might seem a lot easier to like focus on DPS then to keep making sure you're contributing to the key, which is definitely a weird. I play Battle Shaman. I play a lot of Resto Shaman Mythic Plus. I only do like 15s and 16s, get the weekly chests. I don't really do like anything crazy. So it's probably a way different than if it's when you push the 18 plus mark when damage starts to really matter more. But even then, I run, one Igneous Potential. I had the full Battle Shaman setup that I made for Jaina back in the day where I was healing for a while with triple and then double DPS trinkets and even the Torrent, the spell damage, weapon enchant, because I didn't need more healing. I healed fine, and Resto Shaman has, Ascendance and SLT and Healing Tide Totem and all this stuff, right? All these big cooldowns to use in a 5-man setting. But damage always mattered, and Resto basically just waits for meatballs. So do you focus on DPS then when you try to balance and bring that as a holy priest? Do you play, DPS trinkets and stuff of that nature as well, or no, TG?
I definitely run the Claw. It's just a high value Mythic Plus. Sadly, I don't have
Sure.
another good option right now. But it depends on the run. Like, there's some runs where the DPS in that actually interrupt the mobs, and it feels a lot more smoother to weave in the DPS. So I then try to input DPS then. But some runs you can get where the damage is way higher than what it should be because no interrupts are happening and stuff. So then you're playing defensive and won't get the opportunity to heal, well, to damage as much as you would like. So it's a group by group basis is how I try and play it. Like, ideally, I would like to time the key. So I just do whatever actions are necessary to help the team do that.
Right. And then Hunttay, then for Discipline primarily, is that because you could put on DPS trinkets and weapon enchants and stuff of that nature, and even put like your tertiary Azerite to just secondary stats or damage procs, and that's fine, right? Is that just gearing towards that DPS healing hybrid is par for the course?
Yeah, but especially I think in like a lot of keys most people do, the options you take for damage also just contribute to your healing. You can wear Machinist Brilliance enchant, that's giving you int and a secondary, and that's just going to help you do more damage. It still buffs your healing. Wearing stuff like Death Throes, which buffs Purge the Wicked / Shadow Word Pain damage, that's just going to give you more healing and more damage. Secondary am same thing. So Disc, it's not too big of an opportunity cost to wear more damage stuff. When you look at higher keys, I think essences help a lot of healers fill gaps that they might lack. So tank healing is a big thing for a lot of healers, and the Vitality Conduit essences is something that I see a lot of disc priests take in stuff like 21s and 22s, because I've been looking at some disc priests doing high keys, and it fills this gap where disc priests can't really heal tanks very well, but you have this 45-second cooldown that's doing it's like 350k or something, that heals like 23k every 0.5 seconds, every over 6 seconds. So it's a very potent tool, and stuff like TG was saying with Spirit of Preservation, Shadowmend is one of the highest base flash heals in the game, and you have things like Depth of Shadows traits, Spirit of Preservation. If you take Twist of Fate, that's just amping these Shadowmends. I think the highest Shadowmend crit I've ever seen is like 360k.
Oof.
And Shadowmend hits really freaking hard, of course, but it does have that like drawback of it does damage over time, but a lot of the time that just gets healed up by Atonement passively while you have dots on mobs. So yeah, for disc, not too much of a loss to run damage stuff. But when you are pushing those higher keys, you have to sacrifice a bit of damage. So you can't really run Crucible Mage and things of that nature. but you can still run things like the Claw or Death Throws traits. So.
Yeah. So how about then, Hunttay, from you, any words of wisdom or little nuggets of knowledge you would like to impart on any priests that are trying to break into higher Mythic Plus keys? Any resources that they might want to check out, or just things to keep on their radar?
I personally don't know exactly who streams disc keys at the moment. I know Raider.io is the great feature that it shows like when someone's streaming, it has a little dot next to their name. So Raider.io is a great source to check out, what disc priests are doing, if they're streaming and whatnot. When you're trying to break into the scene, it's like pretty important to run consistently with a group. Just to get, once you run with the same people, you know what routes you're going, you know who's stopping what, you know who's popping cooldowns where. Because one of the things I was saying is disc isn't very good at single target healing without having a fully stacked Spirit of Preservation and whatnot. So having a good comms with your tank, knowing what cooldowns they're using, if they need paints up, if they're using a wall here or there, keeping comms up, getting a feel for what people are going to do. But yeah, just being really consistent with who you're running with and what you're doing. Making sure that you're very receptive to criticism. I know a lot of people don't like being told like what they could do differently. They might take offense to it, but there's merit in what people have to say, especially if they're being constructive about it. So be humble, be consistent, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's the tone at which it's, I guess, transmitted.
Oh yeah, for sure.
For sure. And then
it's hard to interpret what people are saying over text too. So. And
then TG, do you have any hopeful shouts to if you want to play Holy in keys, or anything else you want to add to that?
Sadly, I don't really use any of the resources since I'm quite a casual in Mythic Pluses. Like, I'm like yourself, I do my 15s, my 16s, and get the chest done.
Oh yeah.
But if you are wanting to push, because there's a Holy Priest that's done a +20 in every single key. So sticking with the same group, week in, week out, practicing the runs, you'll eventually get there. Just basically what Hunttay said. So there is some scope for Holy to do well, but you do really have to, I guess, work at it.
Sure. I get that. And then, all right, so we've been just a little discussionary, a little rigid with the questions, but this topic is just a couple sentences, but it's a little bit nutty one. So something to loosen up a little bit and talk about the C word, corruption. Get your heads out of the gutter, you weirdos. We're not talking about cereal either, even though I did have some Cinnamon Toast Crunch the other day. Not a sponsor, pretty good. But corruption, short and sweet. How does it impact? What is the implications or the impact for discipline and or Holy? Does it shore up weaknesses for Holy? Does it just add more DPS for discipline? You guys are actually, I think on your armories, you were both wearing the exact same corruptions, I believe. Let me go. Oh, actually, you're both spec'd Holy right now, too. Uh-oh. Hunttay.
I was logged. I was disciplined. I logged in my priest. It's discipline right now too.
Okay, good. All right. But yeah, you were both wearing the same. I had to like scour, but you've got a Racing Pulse and then an Ineffable Truth, and that's it, I believe. Yeah, that's all you got. And TG's got a Void Ritual and an Ineffable Truth, and that's also it. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Ineffable Truth pretty good for healing. Is it a key one there, or is it a priest specific kind of one?
Yeah, Ineffable's been a bit of it was a hushed whisper before this corruption kind of came. No one really looked at Ineffable as like, wow, I want that. But as progression went on, people started seeing the value in it. And especially when they added the tier 1 Ineffable, which is like a third of the corruption and only 20% less CDR. So yeah, Ineffable just helps healers. They have more access to their buttons, which healers always love. And with some of the damage patterns this tier, where almost every boss has like ticking damage and then some burst, having more access to your cooldown.
Yeah.
That just has a lot of value. Specifically for me, I did a heroic sale, and that's the gear I was wearing. But I was wearing Ineffables on N'Zoth prop for a specific reason, where if I used my Evangelism in one place, if I got a single Ineffable proc, I'd have it up for a place to keep healing really smooth and consistent. But as an overall metric for Disc Priest, Disc Priest works with like a lot of corruption because the spec itself is like very good. I think the top log for N'Zoth right now is a Korean priest running just taste corruptions like Expedient Racing Pole, just pumping out Shadow Men. I don't think Ineffable is required, but
wait, you said pumping out Shadow Men's, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, just pumping out Shadow Men's with a bunch of hits. He's playing Lucid Major.
Oh wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's sorry.
No, I guess in that case, as a Shadow Men bot, which is an interesting, I guess, transition, because the other healing your other healers will heal up the dot component. You're there to hit with the big slap heals to spike people in that regard. Is that what I gather from that disc style, or?
Yeah, so in the second phase of N'Zoth specifically, there's usually two adds up the Thought Harvesters. So you have a Purge the Wicked on the boss, and you have two Purge the Wickeds on the end. So while you're pumping out these Shadow Men's, you're applying Atonement to people, and they're getting healed up by the 3 dots ticking on them up. And, that's the thought process there, is as you're applying the Shadow Men's, you're getting healed by the dot. And then when Evokes are coming out, you have a double Radiance to throw out. You throw out your Schism, Solace, Penance, and you're cranking out a bunch of healing.
Yeah. Okay.
You can run pretty good medley of corruptions on Disc Priest. It works well with a few of them. But yeah, that Disc Priest in Korea, he knows what's up.
Yeah, the healer ones, it's funny to see because the damage affix one, because like Gushawood isn't going to add Atonement, right? I don't think Twilight Dev or Infinite Stars and all that stuff adds anything. So the Ineffable and the haste procs, or the secondaries, the Void Rituals, those are where you're going to see an actual impact in your sort of your overall numbers.
Yeah, that was like one of the big changes from Legion, because Disc Priest back in Legion, the damage stuff like trinkets would transfer Atonement. However, they were like half damage, because if they were full damage, it would have been a lot of Atonement value. And one of the changes they decided to make from Legion to BFA is Disc Priest now got full damage from external sources, but Atonement will only transfer through Priest abilities.
Right.
So that's what allows Disc Priest to do so much damage too with these trinkets and stuff, is that their base kit is doing a lot of damage, and then they're getting full damage value from all this other stuff. That's why Disc Priest didn't do quite as much damage in Legion in comparison.
Yeah, I was trying to... Where is... I don't even know if I can view it right now. I have to go into like the database view, but then Blizzard has... It's like where the aura tuning comes into play, right? There's like a huge list in the back end of all the different spells that will only Atonement now, so that only those will interact. Because imagine like if the Drakeclaw could atone right now, right? The 2-minute click 100,000 plus damage, that would be just silly. You'd have Light's Wrath back almost as a dot, kind of.
That's like the owl from Tomb of Sargeras. Used to be very good for Disc Priest.
Oh yeah.
Even though it was half the damage, it was still all that damage going into all the Atonement you're spreading out was still just a very large amount. So.
Yeah. And then TG, how about just anything different for Holy? Because again, you're wearing very similar ones. Or does Holy Priest want Infinite Stars?
Well, I mean, Infinite Stars will help their DPS, but if they're looking to improve the healing, the CDR is amazing for us, because our Holy Words get the salvation back up quicker. So the quicker they get the Holy Words back up, the sooner they pump out that salvation.
Yeah.
I actually seen a log today where someone was wearing 3 rank 2s and 1 rank 1, and they managed to get salvation down to a 1 minute 40 cooldown. So that's kind of the the future, the end game corruption tier, when all the holy priests are running around with all the CDR, like they'll just be blasting salvations out, get lucky with their traps.
What's
But
put in perspective? What's the base cooldown on that compared to the 1 minute 40 you said?
it's 12 minutes cooldown.
Yeah, seems
So,
pretty
yeah,
good.
balance.
Yeah, it's the strongest heal in the game, barring lay on hands, right?
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure like the raw throughput of all the renews and stuff, it just beats any other cooldown by a fair margin.
Right.
But
That
you know,
seems
I
hard.
think like it's great to work towards, but you know, there's other options like Void Ritual or the Leech, and the Mastery proc as well. Like those are all very strong corruption options for the healing. But if you are wanting to go damage, you know, Infinite Stars, Tentacles, Twilight Devastator, just the simple DPS choices if you're really needing to push out some damage.
Okay. Well, I guess that leads me now to discuss a bit of the healer hierarchy then. And earlier in the show, we talked about how essentially any healer can do anything right now. The healer balance within BFA, barring Azerite funkiness or essence funkiness or now corruptionness, within reason. If you're all on the same playing field in this regard, healers should be able to compete with each other. It all just comes down to either fight design or where your guild is aiming at in the heroic or into the mythic world scene, or how big of a key you're running. But so where do you both sort of slot the 6 healers, right? Has this changed? I know that there was a bit of a murmur. The last healer episode we had was Holy Paladin a while back, and there was some discussion there if the Glimmer nerf for them in raids would see them diminish in power. Kind of, but not really. So I don't know if anything got really shaken up with 8.3, with corruptions, and with Glimmerdin not being as prolific. TG, from your side of things, do you see much of a shakeup there compared to what happened before 8.3? Where do you put the 6 healers sort of in a tier list?
I think with the Paladin nerf, they're doing similar amounts of healing to like the end of tier EP. So they're kind of just kept similar in power. So I think I would probably still put Paladin at the very top, and I would probably put the Discipline Priest second place. If
Okay.
we're looking at this from a raid kind of opinion, I would probably put Shamans. You know, those are the 3 kind of classes that really do see their use inside the super high-end raiding.
Yeah.
I'd probably put Holy Priest as the 4th choice, and then Mistweaver Monk with Resto Druid last in my opinion for the raid scene.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about, you know, pure throughput, I think the new Mistweaver build is going to be the king of that one. I think later on when corruption higher, well, not. I think if you play it right, I think Holy Priest is very competitive with the throughput of Holy Paladin.
Okay.
But again, Paladin just more in their toolkit to bring. So I think Paladin, Discipline, Shaman, Holy Priest, Monk, and Resto Druid for raid would be my kind of final 6.
Would you agree with that, Hunttay's, in the rating sense? I don't know if that would change in the Mythic Plus sense at all.
Yeah, so for raid, that's the gist of it, because Paladin, healing aside, still has an immunity, still has a raid-wide DR compared to barriers, 10-yard to 15-yard radius.
Yeah.
Then Resto Shaman following Holy Paladin disagrees, because Resto Shaman, saw Mavi just absolutely demolished on Nizam. Spirit Link is still a very powerful tool. Wind Rush is awesome. Ankh Totem. So those 3 just have so much utility, and on top of having the throughput for progression rating. And following that, I would rank Mistweaver because of the new build above Holy Priest, and then Resto Druid. So, and for Mythic Plus, that's another story.
Well, right. That's why I was trying to juxtapose what you think the Mythic Plus side of things is, because that's also, it also brings in, obviously my show has always been very PvE Dragon Slayer focused, but the arena or PvP scene, like rated BGs, which if you're like a really hardcore raider, that's what you're pushing to get that extra piece of guaranteed corruption at as high as eye levels as you can, that 1800 to at least 2100 plus, is Mistweaver is funny how it's been like this, it's this weird spot all expansion, but it's so frustrating in PvP. And even so is Holy Paladin in PvP, also insane, because they've got 2 different immunities and uninterruptibles and instant cast spells, right? That's Druid has been the king of arena and battlegrounds because of their CC and survivability, and even though Bear Form has been nerfed rather heavily because of the Mythic Plus last expansion to this one, still insane. Not even bringing up the whole Guardian Druid fiasco that Druids get to do right now in PvP, where they just go full DPS bear, don't die, and eventually you can't, they're not going to die if you can't kill them, so you lose, I guess. But how does that, does it change for Mythic Plus then? You said that's a whole other story. What's the other story there?
Yeah, so when we're looking at Mythic Plus, pretty much see the same thing as good at this point, where Holy Pally has just taken the reins, then followed by Resto Druid. And then I think it's like Mistweaver, Disc Priest, Mistweaver, kind of equal, and then then Resto Shaman, then H Priest. It's like kind of like, I think all the healers bar H Priest can do up to like a 21 or 22 right now, but then when you're starting to push those 23s and 24s is when you're only seeing Holy Pallies and Resto Druids.
Yeah.
And that just has to do with the fact that if you look at overall, if you think of Mythic Plus like a giant health bar, you know, Holy Pallies are able to do a ton of damage right now, and they don't have to sacrifice much for it. Vision of Perfection and things like Ineffable Truth and Twilight Devil. I don't think you really run ITs in Mythic Plus. Things like Twilight Dev, you know, you're not losing much to run the Twilight Dev, and you're just adding a ton of damage to that dungeon. I think my Pally, who doesn't even have a Twilight Dev, I'm doing about anywhere from 40 to 45k overalls. And then Resto Druids, even with that high noon nerf, are still sporting like 30, 35k overalls. And those 2 specs don't have to sacrifice much to do that damage on top of the other utility they bring, like Paladin's immunities and Bob, Resto Druid having stealth, B-res.
The toilet.
Yeah. Then, you know, Disc Priest is able to do the throughput and keys, but they have to sacrifice a lot of damage the higher you go up, running things like Vitality, Conduit Major, and having to Shadow Mend a lot more. Resto Shaman, kind of same thing. They're not offering a lot of damage when things are getting sketchy. They have to spam a lot of healing, and that's where you see some of the key differences. It's kind of like what we were talking about with progression rating, where you're trying to edge out the most advantage you can get while not losing out on anything.
Yeah.
And that's why we see, you know, similar to Legion, why Holy Pallies and Resto Druids are just kind of sitting at the top. They just offer so much and lose so little to add on to that.
So I guess that's the point I put here as well. Is it just like, that's just how, do you foresee that gonna, it's not exactly how it was last expansion, but it's also not exactly how it was. Do healers just sort of feel like there are niches they're going to fulfill, or niches they're going to fulfill and sit in, and that's just going to be how it plays out, right? If you want to play a Mistweaver, you're going to be stronger in these areas and way weaker in the others. And Discipline has just been this powerhouse in raiding scene, especially the mythic raiding scene. I would say really since Warlords, when it was almost toxic. And then it obviously got toned down a bit into Legion, and where it sits now in BFA. That's just, you guys just accept that's the key. You're not gonna be able to plug and play any healer into any situation. And is the healer niches just, that's it then, yeah? Do you think Blizzard can do anything to figure that out?
I think the start of BFA was a really interesting time, in my opinion, because a lot of things were viable. I think people were pretty much playing everything but H Priest. You know, Mistweavers had this niche where they were able to crank out so much single target healing for their eye level, and tanks had just gotten. I don't remember all the nerfs, but tanks were not as independent as they were in Legion. You know, back in Legion, Blood DKs and Vengeance CHs didn't need like any help from a healer essentially, and so healers could just focus on maxing their damage in Legion keys. But then when we went into BFA, tanks needed a little bit more help, and so Mistweavers had this niche where they were able to spam single target healing on the tank like a ton. And so keys like King's Rest, which have a lot of priority target healing, Mistweavers were like kings in there. But then we had situations like Temple of Sithralis, which had a lot of group-wide healing over a long period of time, like Galvast and the last boss, where Resto Druids were a bit more potent there. And then we also had the situation where Disc Priests were doing a ton of damage compared to other healers and had decent throughput as well. And so I mean, there were also Holy Paladins running around doing the same thing. They were able to do a ton of damage and had decent throughput, but they lacked that single target healing factor. And so I think the meta at the start of BFA was very diverse, and you could see different niches being filled by the different healers. But as time went on, people got traits, new traits, essences, corruption, more secondaries. Things like HPAL and Resto Druid just started to take over because now Holy Paladins and Resto Druids can do more damage on a Disc Priest and still do the same throughput, and they don't have that opportunity cost. And I think that would require a bit more in-depth look at how each spec interacts both with secondaries and the systems that exist in the expansion at the time. Because I believe they're bringing back legendaries in Shadowlands, right? With, like, craft or something like that.
Kind of. The way the Torghast, the Torghast legendaries are going to be basically the cards that you get to upgrade as you go up the tower, like some of those buffs you get in the tower. You can craft one to be a permanent. But that was 2019 BlizzCon. We have no idea what that's going to turn into. Yeah. But now it's the whole thing we brought up on previous shows with covenants, and what if the covenant you pick is, your best, in this case, your best for disciplines, throughput to turn damage into healing, and then that one gets nerfed, so you're gonna switch covenants, LOL, midway through the expansion or something. Or what if the first legendary you pick is totally bonkers, ridiculous, and they nerf that one, then you're set back 6 weeks to make your next one, or however long it takes. And then, it's just, we'll see.
It's highly system based. It's hard to tell what it will look like going forward because a spec rework or things they add or take away can interact differently with the systems that exist in the expansion. Like Legion having tier sets and legendaries, and being able to gear swapping is actually such a massive thing too. So, maybe they bring that back, and that just changes the playing field for healers. So only time will tell would be my answer to that.
Yeah, that's a big one. That is definitely a big one.
I think it's something a little bit forgotten about. It was kind of like a big deal when they said no more gear swap. And it's just kind of been the norm now, but it's still something that would like imagine being able to change from having triple Twilight Dev on trash and then going, Gushing Wounds or something for bosses. That would be a big deal.
Probably, it would probably break part of the way that the game is balanced now. So I imagine something like that might stay, because it is, they akin it to when you start a raid boss, you're in combat the entire time with the raid boss, you can't change your stuff. You can, I guess, change your weapons, but that's been always a thing. But in a Mythic Plus dungeon, you're starting, and the entire dungeon is one continuous raid boss, even though obviously it's not a one-to-one comparison. So those are kind of the decisions that Blizzard's made before, where they've been like, But I'm going to flip-flop these topics real quick here, because Hunttay had that one. But TG, do you have, and this from like your Holy Priest sensibilities now, do you have a particular tank in BFA that you enjoy healing the most versus the least? And why is that? I
think in Mythic Pluses, my favourite tank, surprisingly, is the Holy Thought Paladin. I've just had really good experiences with them. It seems like if they play their cooldowns right, they don't really tax me out a lot as a healer. Whereas if I play with a Brewmaster, sure, they reduce the incoming damage, but it's more like a lot more healing over time, so they require more healing. And that's obviously raising the single target requirement a lot higher in the Mythic Pluses, which takes my time away from damaging sucks a little bit. But in raids, obviously, I would say Brewmaster's definitely my favourite one there. You know, my Echo of Light and stuff is just passively healing up the stagger damage. And I'm not sure what I would say is my least favourite in raids, because I've only played with two Brewmaster monks for a very long time as my tanks in raids. So,
Yep.
so I'm not sure what my least favourite would be beside the raids.
Hunttay,
But no.
have you had different tanks you've healed?
Yeah, I've healed pretty much all of them. They're throughout the expand. I think the bear is the least I've. I would say just from just looking at Raider Io is kind of an obvious answer. Prot Warrior is probably my favorite tank to heal, because a well played Prot Warrior essentially needs no heal. When you can tell some tanks, you can tell like the different comfort levels and different skill levels, like based on what healing they need. If you're playing with a Prot Warrior that's tank 20, 21s, 22s, they're probably not going to take like any damage compared to someone that hasn't really gone above that comfort weekly 15, 16 key level. I think followed by that, a really well played Vengeance DH is actually, it's kind of significant. Vengeance is like probably my worst, like least favorite tank deal, and also one of the ones I prefer, because if it's a good Vengeance DH, it's almost like a Legion Blood Decay.
Yep.
Where they kind of don't need healing and you get to just maximize your DPS. But then there's some that just like just get railed by a pack, and you just have to keep spamming flash heals and hope maybe they'll leap away. Yeah, but I think all the tanks are kind of like, I don't want to say balanced, but I've noticed some of them, all the specs, I don't have to heal them. Like a good bear, I don't have to heal, and then some just get absolutely. I know when I try to play my bear or try to tank a key on my druid, I just die. So I'm obviously not a tank player.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Prot Warrior, definitely my favorite. I think that just because it overall requires the least amount of healing and allows me to min-max my damage the most and I contribute to the key the most.
It's interesting you both had different like top tanks. So I mean it's very experience dependent for sure. I know on the Vengeance Demon Hunter show, if you want to go back in time a little bit on that one, there was definitely some talk about how, I mean, the Gluttony build wasn't fully realized back then, but now we're in a world of Racing Pulse and Expedient, and kind of in a way that the Mistweaver new, kick punch, almost like jab uplist style of Rising Mist build right now is huge because of haste stacking. So is the new Vengeance Demon Hunter build, where you just did you see, this had to have made the rounds, there was the log from the Mythic Shadhar where the Vengeance DH had like 1 million HPS or something unreal at certain bursts. Just stupid.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Just never got
tank.
Yeah.
Sorry. Their tank, like their other tank, wasn't there that night, and they decided to just one tank, and it worked. And that was just like so funny to see. It's like a Vengeance DH topping the meter.
Yep. Just because the amount of souls on GCD ripping them out and eating them over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. Obviously super like razor's edge balance there, because if anything went wrong, probably just fall over. But hey, it worked. I mean, it's a funny looking log. Vengeance Demon Hunter definitely got the little boost it was looking for. But and then to go back to you again, TG, how about a random thought? What is your biggest World of Warcraft healer pet peeve in the game?
I think it's, to be honest, I'm pretty sure most healers would say this, but it's definitely going to have to be like line of sight.
Oh, sure.
Like the cloud smoke in Tentacle Boy. It's just really infuriating. Like, or some people are running away for the orb to damage the boss, and you realise that they're 60 yards and they're in the cloud smoke and a different cloud smoke, and you're like, can't.
Well, you're speaking of Drestigath specifically, because even the middle mound that Drestigath's main head eyeball comes out of his even has LOS problems, I've heard.
Luckily for me, I haven't experienced that, but
Mm.
I know on Elganoth as well, with our placements of the Know the Spell strat, that we had a couple of DPS hiding behind a wall, and I'm like, oh, I can't quite reach that because you're hiding. Can you pop out a little bit?
So how did you feel about Mythic Azara then?
I hated progress of that. I didn't actually kill it, but I got up to spell phase with the warlocks. Hiding behind the console and that.
Yep.
And that infuriating. Hopefully they don't do another boss like that, but I'm sure they.
That was the biggest point of feedback I think I heard was that, I guess thematically, it's a fun lore mechanic that her power Azara is so overwhelming that it eventually just tears everything down around it. She's just oozing arcane energy, but at the same time, from a gameplay, not so fun. Now it's after a number of months of farming it, and obviously when the nerfs came in, not as big of a deal. But we only had like 130-ish thousand HP when you soaked properly, 150 maybe. A little bit spicier for sure. Going back to the Race to World First for that one, a lot of the sentiment was that it's basically an LOS fight where you were like, I'm on 3-4 spells. 3-4 spells again. That was the whole fight. In and out of LOS the whole time. What about a pet peeve for you, Hunttay? What do you got? Apparently chat says when you don't get innervate. Is that
No. Don't listen to Goosey.
Okay.
He's a bird enthusiast. But anyway, same thing. I don't think I can express how much Azshara made me hate the game because it just had this I think any mechanic where it's like you have no control over it and you can't affect the outcome is very frustrating. So for example, Azshara had healers always got beckoned. So, it was always on a range DPS and always on a healer. So, range was 1 in 9 chance of you getting it, whereas healer was 1 in 3 because most skills 3 healed it. And there were just some pulls where, you would get every beckon as a healer and you wanted to just kind of curl up in a ball and die. And then on top of that, constantly losing control of your character, you also had line of sight happening. And from a disc point of view, is you go to cast a Radiance on someone and they lined you. Try and cast on someone else, they lined you. And obviously the players, stand in a position where they're where you're standing, you can heal from any line of sight, but sometimes it just happened where people, just went out of line of sight. And it's not just an Azshara thing too. Sometimes it happens on Ny'alotha where you go to heal someone and then they kind of run out of range because there's 70 tentacles around the room and they have to hit this tentacle, and then you think you finish your cast and then you hit evangelism, but you didn't finish your cast, and then that happened a couple times on Ny'alotha proc, and then Drustagath, like TG was saying, you can't heal half the rigs, they're in the smoke cloud. I mean, you do have there is the weird interaction where you could heal someone near the cloud that was in your line of sight and it would hit people in the cloud, but you couldn't directly heal the people. So, that was nice, but it's still just not being able to have full control over the outcome is a very frustrating aspect from my point of view.
Yeah, how about I'll go with you on chat on that one too. How about when people ask for heals?
Oh man, Ny'alotha, I get, not to beat a dead horse, but Ny'alotha is just everyone's kind of dying, especially in that second phase.
Sure.
And people are just asking, I didn't get any heals. Where are my heals? And it's kind of you didn't die. You might be low, but you didn't die. And it's just kind of a thing where, one, it's a healer comfort thing. That is a ton of raid damage that's happening. So when you're early on in phase 2 prog, you're probably gonna be low. So you should just be happy if you didn't die. I think towards our when we got closer to our kill attempt, everyone was really healthy, save for I think the third evoke where it was probably our lightest with healing. But yeah, it's just if you didn't die, if you died, didn't get a heal in 10 seconds, okay, then chew me out. But it's when the whole raid is just on the brink of death, you didn't die. I don't know. It's slightly annoying.
To be fair, I will admit my guild is pretty good in not calling out for the one heal usually. More often than not, if we have a wipe, it's usually just do we just add in another healer? Can we just add in another? We got this. Just misplay or whatever, but I have been playing in older guilds where someone gets like a dot on them or something, and it's like heal me, heal me, heal me, and I'm like, just literally got the dot. Don't worry, the healers are aware. They can see it in their frames that you have the dot. Just let the healers heal you.
Okay. Let the healers heal you. Yeah. Because that's the one, that fight in particular, I noticed that the amount of HPS that you can pump out, this is Mythic N'alotha specifically, it always seems like it never is enough from like a spectator perspective. You know, as I was casting the Race to World first, watching it happen, everyone's kind of like, because the aura isn't the big thing. It's the everything when it stacks everything else on top of it, and it's the big wave of damage or people getting hit by eye beams or whatever. It always looked like, which again is that a fight that actually is, barring the huge distances. Suddenly, that's a fight that healers enjoy, right? When there's stuff to heal and react to and get, and you know, build that understanding of the flow of the encounter. Because some fights, and this is the bane of all healers, is when you're like, well, we don't need 4 healers to drop to a third, because we don't need a 4th, right? Or the really bad fights we've had in the past, like Star Augur, we don't need a 3rd, we'll drop to 2. It's also a DPS balancing point, because that boy had some thick HP, but you'd rather have enough of your healing team in these encounters and enough to heal to keep you engaged, versus the opposite, I would imagine. Yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Like, when we come from Eternal Palace, that was like a very light healing tier. It's like the only super intense healing bosses were Savara, and that's just because that the HPS on that fight was completely determined on how people handle their debuffs. And then Orgazoa, which was like a slowly ramping type of fight. Everyone kind of got the dot over time, and then there was the AoE that would happen and hit everyone with the dot. So, and the thing with that too is that's when essences were introduced. So healers just got like a ton of like new tools, and they didn't really need them because we saw with Methods World first. You know, they used 2 disc priests, and like both of them were doing, I don't know, maybe 50 or 50k on the kill. It's like Ashara for an end boss was like, there was nothing to heal because you could essentially line all the damage, save the pressing the console in the last phase. So coming into this tier where like every boss just has ticking damage, bursting damage, you know, it actually lets healers play with all these new tools they got with essences, and on top of that now they have corruption.
Yep.
So it allows for some more skill expression, which, you know, everyone loves to have that. It kind of feels bad when you're playing something and, you know, you're not actually using it to its full potential.
Right. Sure. Well, we've got some burning questions to ask that I have FAQ'd, and just some rapid fire stuff in a moment. And then, of course, if chat has questions as well, I think Hunttay sees it. We'll ask it after this. I'm going to take a quick moment here to talk about a couple of things while my guests have a short moment of reprieve. They need to step away for a moment. As I told them before, they're both brand new to this, but I said, once we'll sit down and start talking, all of a sudden hours will fly by. We're at an hour and 20 or so minutes in. So we've still got some more show ahead of us here, but let's double check a few things real quick. If you missed, of course, this show, or you want to check back on the previous shows or any of the archive therein, of course, the show gets audio only podcast form as it would normally do, as you'd expect. The live show version, of course, is what we're sitting here doing right now, but everything does go podcast only, and that's on the website at FinalBossTV on the podcast page. You've also got on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and more recently now Spotify. You can just search for FinalBossTV. So I've got all of our old art up. It's all built into the RSS feed that's pulled from the website, so that has to get all back end updated, but that's all right there as well if you would like to listen to the audio only one. So you can follow that if you use Spotify for your music of choice. Of course, the RSS feed from the website, or again, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music. That is all right there if you want to listen to the audio only stuff. And again, of course, big shout out to those that are supporting what I do here directly over on my Patreon page, grabbing that extra BTS podcasts that are up there. The after show sort of wrap downs are, you know, off script, just extra jibber jab, an extra 20, 30, 40 minutes or so, depending The longest after show I think I ever recorded was me and Preach. We talked about going into BFA from Legion. It was like 2 hours because we just didn't know when to stop. We just kept pulling on strings and threads of this, that, other thing. So there's just more podcast available, that extra little level if you wanted more. And if you are a patron, if you pledge over on Patreon, there's an RSS feed you can grab as well. That as long as you're active, you have access to it, and then you can also do the audio only from there. But of course, big shout out and a huge thank you. I'm sitting in a room right now with all the different support that you guys have given me over the years to make the show a little more professional, a little more legitimate, of course, but I'm sitting around with a bunch of my Corsair and Elgato gear, and if you guys are looking for any ways to support what I do here, potentially directly with some physical things, if you're looking for your next pieces and parts and bits and bobs for an upcoming build, then I've been a huge fan of Corsair's product line even before I signed on with them last year. And more recently, of course, if you haven't heard, with your support, that's how my relationship with Corsair grows. I was promoted a couple of months ago. So as that keeps moving forward, maybe one day I'll have my ugly 5-head on a mouse cartridge box like Bajira has. Who knows? But you can go check out all the things down below. I can get you 10% off and free shipping as well, free standard shipping. I use it myself. I just ordered another keyboard and a mouse mat for my other setup beside me that I'm slowly turning into my streaming PC. But you can go check out the link down below in the description box on YouTube if you're watching there. Or, of course, if you're over here on Twitch, it's just right down below the stream, or the Corsair command in chat, !Corsair or !Elgato, with the links for you there. Tracking link helps me out, gets you guys a little bit off if you're looking for, headset, keyboards, mice, of those natures. That's all down below. And I appreciate you guys for doing that over the years. And of course, getting yourself something nice for the holidays or birthday present. I don't know. But today we're talking about priests. Talk about shadow priests we did earlier. So we got discipline and holy left. And it's always this weird time with the absorb healer. But I've got some goofy questions to ask here because we've talked enough about the serious stuff. So, TG, Hunttay, you ready to talk about some more lighthearted stuff, potentially?
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
The first one I'm going to bring up here, fan favorite. Which Legion artifact skin, we'll start with Light's Wrath, was your favorite? I don't think either of you are transmog to this at all right now. Nope. Well, you have a wand, unfortunately, right now, Hunttay. That's too bad. You both have wands. Oh, crap.
It's the ineffable wand.
Yeah. That's important.
It's so weird that you can't transmog artifacts still. It seems like an oversight, but...
Well, it's just a wand thing. It's not... You can transmog... It's just wands, because they didn't add those, because they added wands back in BFA, but... Yeah, I don't know. Hunttay, which Light's Wrath model would you use if you could?
The Challenge Tower staff, the black and gold and red variant. It's probably my favorite. It's probably the only good one too. The Light's Wrath, like appearances, all look kind of weird compared to the holy one, in my opinion. Yeah, definitely the Challenge Tower. Yeah,
this one, the Ascended Watch, the Mage Tower one. I do believe this is the one. It's the wings in the back.
Yeah, the wings in the back and the like black wings and the gold base. Right?
Yeah,
that one. That color of that appearance is definitely my favorite. I used that one for a bit.
That's pretty good. What's your favorite Light's Wrath, TG?
I would say it would have to be. I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not really super big in the transmog, but the one that I can seem to remember, transmog for Holy Priest, Staff of the Lightborn, at least.
Oh, you're getting ahead of me. You wanted to do...
Yeah, like, for the disc, I could not tell you, to be honest. Cannot.
Oh, the Crest Lightborn looks kind of goofy on Wowhead's model viewer. What was this one from? Was this the...
It's the hidden one.
The hidden one, yeah. The crazy angel wing little...
You needed to be revered or exalted with Valor Jar, and then you had to do Halls of Valor. You looted something of Herja, I believe.
Has a very.
I thought it.
Oh, go ahead.
I got to say, like, I thought the staff there just went well with the tier sets that the holy or priest get given, and then like Legion as a whole.
All
But
of
again,
all the designs, they have this like that gothic feel outside of a couple of them. They all kind of have. They give me like a Warhammer 40,000 like chaplain vibe. Just because they have that just that chunkiness outside of the one that's actually that is literally Tu'ur, the big Naru floating on a stick like a popsicle or something. Yeah, and the art from these is really, really good. Do you have... Because, yeah, you guys are both... Let me see, you're both wanded right now. Yeah. The Eye Stalk of Il'gynoth. Yep, and the Eye Stalk of Il'gynoth. Yep. Yeah, but wands... Well, even though, Hunttay, yours is transmogged to... what is it? It's the like star sparkler.
Yeah, his little star sparkler matches the gold theme, you know. It's not. I don't have a lot of wand mogs, so.
Well, there aren't that many in the game.
Mm.
The Grody Goblin Wand.
I don't look at the names, honestly.
Oh no. Yeah, and then TG's is the actual one. It is literally the eye stalk. It's not transmogged at all. It is the actual wand, even though it's like a freaking mace.
Yeah, especially on a female blood elf.
That looks massive, for sure. Well, I gotta ask the question from chat. What is up with CLF at Discipline? This is a meme? This is a real thing? It's a haste amp?
So, there was a disc priest in the Guild Vision that played Formless Void Major, and he took Condensed Life Force over the course of N'alotha, and that's what he used for Prague, and they killed it with that. And when I was streaming our progression, I ended up having a lot of people jokingly telling me to play CLF Major. And every time we would have a wipe, they would say, you wouldn't have wiped with CLF.
Well, obviously. Did you try it?
During one of our breaks, like the night we killed it, we had a break, and I just jokingly just took it. I changed and used the tome, and I took Formless Void Major. I put Crucible Miner in, and I just took Condensed Life Force from someone that was just like, is this what you want? Is this what you wanted?
Yeah.
Then our break's over, and pull timer starts, and I just forget that I had that slotted in.
He forgot.
I literally forgot because I was eating. I was like eating pretzels, and they're asking me to ASMR eating pretzels, and I just forgot. And then then we pulled the boss, and then we killed it that pull, and I'm just like freaking out the entire time when I noticed, because I legit didn't even notice till like right before I was gonna press the Ever Rising Tide, which is the essence I was using all of Prague. And I'm just freaking out the whole time. And the guy that played CLF was in my chat, and I'm like asking him, like, okay, when do I use it next? When am I using it next? And that essence is funny because it's a 40% increased cooldown from the base of what you take. So I'm just sitting here with like a 4-minute something cooldown with Condensed Life Force. Then we just go to that pull.
I would imagine
CLF was the difference.
I would imagine the damage it does is rather insignificant, but I mean it is a flat damage amp, which is a healing amp, and then a haste amp, which is also a healing amp. So it's not awful. What's awful is the 4+ minute cooldown.
Yeah, so in the log, the Guardian of Azeroth himself, I think, did like 1.8 million damage for me.
Ooh, so much.
Plus the like 5%. Obviously could quantify, but I didn't do the math on the 5% damage amp you get from him throwing rocks at the dude.
Well, 3% now. 3% it got nerfed.
Oh. Yeah. I actually know I never take that essence, but the CLF miner, not CLF, Crucible Miner did like I think an extra like 1.5 mil damage too. Like itself.
Gosh.
So overall, like on average on our low wipes, I was doing about 6.5, 7 million N'Zoth damage. And on our kill, I did like 9.5 million. But I think we were like 2 seconds prior to getting MC'd on our kill. I could be wrong. So like unironically could have been the difference. It could have been the reason we killed it. So
Or
it's
just
an ongoing meme.
or like 4 other chaos bolts crit during the fight.
Or some person not dying to a beam or what have you, but the boss died, so
yeah.
that is the story behind Seal.
All right, TG, why don't you regale us with a favorite encounter you remember fondly as a healer, and why is it Velythria Dreamwalker, but also why is it probably not? What's a fondly remembered healing fight for you?
I would probably say Horadon, because it was the first ever tier that I properly got into raiding, I guess. And I was playing Discipline, and he smashes through the doors, his damage taken increase is happening, and my atonement just going out of control.
Oh,
And
true.
we totally thought we were going to wipe, and with the amount of damage that he was taking extra, the atonement just carried the fight, and we got like a really early kill. And for the first tier, I thought that was like a really hype moment for me, because it was it felt like I was carrying that fight, but it probably wasn't. But I felt like that at least. So that's something I remember early on in my raiding time.
That's an interesting one from a healing perspective too, because any boss that takes increased damage obviously would give increased throughput for the Discipline Priest to probably counteract some of the damage going out to the raid. But normally, as a DPS player, you're always like you're pining for those damage amp multiplicative moments to stack all your stuff in to do big damage. But it's funny how that also impacts a healing fight, or at least that aspect of being a healer. Because if Horadon takes more, it was like, what is it, 25% or 50% more damage per gate he smashes into? So
yeah, at the end I doubled my healing, so it felt good.
That's wild. That's the first time I ever think anyone on this show has brought up Horadon. Hunttay, how about you? Do you have a fondly remembered healing encounter?
I kind of, this might be a throw in the wind, but because I didn't play healer that much at that point, but I had healer alts in Dragon Soul, and I kind of really liked healing Ultraxion because of the different healing buffs you'd get.
Oh,
you had the Alex Straza one that you breathe the cone of fire, I think, that healed people, and then Ysera, and then the Caligos one gave you a ton of haste, which I had a holy paladin, and you could just spam that holy radiance spell on the whole raid, and the whole raid is just taking a ton of damage by the end of Ultraxion. So I thought that was a really neat encounter. It was one of the first fights, or one of the first raids that I got to heal, and I enjoyed that a lot. So yeah, I'd give it to Ultraxion.
Okay. And then how about the always, every question you always ask any DPS tank or healer player, if they couldn't play what they main, so if you couldn't play priest essentially to be a healer, and what class would you play? I think Hunttay, yours is pretty simple because you're kind of already doing that right now. Is that correct? What would you play if you weren't playing priest to heal?
For raids, it would probably be Mistweaver Monk, I would say.
Okay.
But for Mythic Plus, definitely Paladin.
Now, is that because of how BFA is, or just your connections with those classes in those environments?
I mean, I'd say because up until the end of Legion, I was kind of just a priest one trick, but being exposed to the other specs in Antorus and then playing all of them throughout BFA, I've enjoyed playing Monk and Raid because it has a ton of mobility, and you can pretty much just move all the time on that class. You have double roll and Tiger's Lust.
Yeah,
you have a ton of tank healing if it's needed.
Yep.
So I've just kind of enjoyed playing Mistweaver and Raid throughout the course of the expansion, and then for Mythic Plus, I played a lot of Paladin and Antorus, and I enjoyed the aspect of being able to manage cooldowns really well, because you had Tears Deliverance and Wings and Holy Avenger, and then you have Sack and Bop and Bubble. So I really like that cooldown management style compared to something like a Resto Druid, where you just always kind of have access to your tools. So
Okay.
yeah.
TG, what about you? If you weren't able to heal on priest anymore, what would you gravitate towards?
I think my choice would be shaman.
Oh,
I don't know. I like the battle shaman style where you're there for the CDs, or you just spam chain heal and just hope that you're fighting in a raid where everyone's stacked and you feel happy with getting out of that.
yeah.
I think for me it's reactionary healers are kind of my preferred pick, and I think shamans are very reactionary. I think in terms of there's not really as much setup compared to Glimmer. You're setting up your Glimmers, Disc, you're ramping up.
Yeah.
Mistweaver with the new buff, the new build. I think that's just my safe choice. Although I have played Paladin, and I think I'd be alright with potentially playing Paladin as well. But Shaman definitely my number one choice. Paladin would be choice.
Dang, neither of you said Druid at all. Everything
I
else was
hate
mentioned
Druid.
but Druid. Don't like Druid?
I've never liked the hot style. I don't know. When I had to play, so when I wanted to do keys, I had to play Resto Druid earlier in BFA because
Yeah.
Resto Druid was just so much better than everything else, just because of throughput it had and the utility it had. And even early on when I tried different healers, I just never liked Druid. It never resonated with me. And now that I've gotten, because I've played it in alt raids a few times and healed some mythic bosses on it, and it just, I don't, not my style. I don't like the hot style very much. So
That's actually interesting because I've toyed around with the idea of going back to my roots, literally and figuratively, by playing my Druid for Shadowlands, depending on how the beta goes. Just because the shaman elevator, escalator, tightrope dance for the last 3 expansions has been so nonsensical. So
yeah, I think right now Druid just, I'll say that I semi enjoyed Resto Druid and Antorus with like playing Tree of Life and Velens and Flourish and Gahanir. It had a lot of buttons. It felt akin to Disc Priest, where you set up a lot and comboed your Flourish and Essence of Gahanir, and it felt good to play in that regard. But then BFA, like in raids, it's kind of a Trank bot now.
yeah,
They like put Flourish and Gahanir together, so you have to choose between having Flourish or Germination, I believe, is in the same tree.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of feels way too reliant on its cooldown, and it doesn't have as much of its healing elsewhere. And Resto Druid is like a really good tank healer. So like on Unat, for example, we played a Resto Druid and they just babysat the tanks. So it has its niche in raid right now, but I personally don't enjoy the play style. So.
Well then, how about other play styles then? Have either of you, I don't know who the others to, I don't know which one of you have actually done this. Have you played healers or healer classes in other MMOs or other big RPG games? Like, do you have experience playing anything like Final Fantasy or Terra or Wildstar or whatever else that sort of competes with that MMO space, and played a healer and felt how different those games were? Is there anything you like? How does that compare to World of Warcraft healing? And then are there any mechanics from those games, from those MMOs, that you would like to see utilized or amalgamated in some way into World of Warcraft's healing model?
So I play Final Fantasy right now.
Okay.
I started playing last February again. That game has some interesting healing jobs, or that's what the classes are called in that
Jobs,
game.
yeah.
The classes, like Final Fantasy's class design overall, has like a ton of buttons compared to WoW. Like I would say that it has much more complex class design. But the thing is, like the way the raid fights work in that game is there's pretty tight rage timers. So when you're healing in Final Fantasy, you're basically just playing a DPS with healing button. And you see like the method did a race to world first for the most recent Final Fantasy raid.
Yeah.
When you're healing, you just want to be, if no one's gonna die, you are hitting a DPS button. You kind of want to coordinate with your co-healer. Maybe this healer is going to use their cooldowns here, and the other healer is just DPSing, because that's like pretty important. But the thing with that is like the class, the 3 healing jobs that exist in that game have like a ton of healing in there. So you see like sometimes groups will they'll just use 1 healer, because in raids in that game you sign up with 2 tanks, 2 healers, 4 DPS for a lot of the content. So a lot of raids will just 1 heal something, because there's a ton of healing in those healers kits, but the way their fights are designed, there's not a ton of raid damage. It's not like WoW, like Ny'alotha, for example. Every fight just has constant ticking damage and a lot of bursts, so healers actually have to heal a lot and try to squeeze out as much DPS as they can. It's kind of like a reverse situation in Final Fantasy, where you're doing as much DPS as you can and just healing when it's absolutely necessary. So I've also healed in Terra, which is an MMO that came out. It got ported over to NA in 2012, I think, and that was also a really fun game where it was like the fights in that game was like completely mechanic based, and you could kind of dodge everything. So it's akin to, you just wanted to get as much DPS as possible in that game.
Yep.
But there was like a lot of different tools that the healers had. Like, you know, there was the healer I played was a mystic, and it had auras that gave crit buff to the party, or mana regen, or I think there was like a damage reduction one. So that's kind of stuff that's existed in WoW, like being able to buff other people, like power infusion, being able to give it to a DPS. So I think seeing things like that being brought back to WoW, like being able to buff the party up, would be a cool concept. It's like back to Final Fantasy, there's the Bard, which provides the raid with damage amps or crit amps, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's always the tough part about how WoW's class design, though, and raid design has always been so limiting, because if there's certain, like right now we have the debacle of raid buffs, which are just sort of there. They don't matter as much, but the debuffs that Demon Hunter and Monk bring, those are just super obnoxious, and you always notice them when you don't have them, not when you do. So it's one of those things that, yeah, like the Bard class exists in XIV, and it's a super big buff bot, basically. And that, I don't know if that kind of thing would work in World of Warcraft. I think it would definitely, the game is structured so differently. But I understand the desire that many people have wanted it. I mean, I played Enhancement Shaman back in Burning Crusade because it just it buffed a group. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, definitely. Every game just designs their fights differently too, which overall would affect class design. So
sure. And then TG, do you have any other MMO or game experience as a healer?
Not really. Like, I had played a wee bit of Final Fantasy, but like the points were covered there.
Yeah.
I think it is hard to balance it. Like, you would, like you were saying, if they make a buff class or whatever in Warcraft, if it's really strong, feel like you're required to have it, and if it's weak, no one's going to take it anyway. And the paladins and priests are just going to be in the kind of hard juggle.
So you're mainline WoW then for you, huh?
Yeah, like I would say that's definitely my main like MMO game that I would play.
Sure, that's totally fine. The question up in chat, Mordog has a good one. We kind of touched this a little bit earlier. Not on Mordog's question. It was Theta's question. Mordog has one too about like direct damage and stuff like that. But the first one was, if you're looking to heal for the first time in World of Warcraft, what would you recommend for your preferred spec out of any of the 6, I'm assuming?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit biased in this one, but I'm going to recommend Holy Priest, because the simple stuff that you do, you know, like keep your prayer mending and cooldown. You use your circle of healing and cooldown. When your holy words are off cooldown, like you use them when there's a heavy single target hit. You use Serenity. There's heavy AoE coming out. You use Sanctify, and then you just work towards building them back out. And that's pretty much all you do for the entire fight. Where a lot of the other classes, or maybe timing stuff a little bit more concise than what a Holy Priest has to do with like a cloud buff totem, where you're storing up a bit of the healing inside that, waiting to pop it for a decent little burst, or if you're ramping up, etc. Like, I think Holy is a nice, friendly starting class that can allow a player to really enjoy the healing side of the game.
Okay. Hunttay, what would be your starter healer spec of the 6?
Same thing. I think Holy Priest, it offers a good mix of being able to manage cooldowns, like hitting Palm off cooldown, getting the most value out of him and Salvation. It has the mastery for Holy Priest. Echo of Light does a percentage of your direct healing over time after you heal, so it kind of has like a fallback mechanic. It's like, oops, I messed up and healed a little early, but if they take the damage right after, you're still getting some throughput there. So I'd say it's like a very unpunishing spec in that regard when you're starting. Also, I think Resto Druid's like not the worst class as well to start on, because Resto Druid teaches you a bit more about the ramp style that likes to put roots into every expansion, or like, Disc Priest, Glimmerden, Rising Mistweaver, these different healing specs that pop up. I think Resto Druid, getting rejuves on people and flourishing, that also teaches people a bit about cooldown management as well as ramping, since those ramp play styles do peak their head throughout the course of WoW. So Holy Priest definitely entry level, like basic, start that. But if you want to like get a better feel for overall healing, I think Resto Druid is also good for that.
Tribe would like to know if Blizzard should bring back Lightwell with the glyph. I'm not sure what the glyph did. The glyph was like the automatic Lightwell slap or something, wasn't it? I can't remember.
Think so.
I can't comment either. I don't know what the glyph done.
I can't remember
There
either.
was, I believe there was a glyph that gave it more charges, I think, but then there was also a glyph that made it automatic. Because I think at one point it was just automatic, and the glyph just gave it more charges. But I can't say for certain.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I don't know. Lightwell. I don't know how that could exist in today's world. If it's just a heal you plop down into an area, then how different is that than just putting down Sanctify or Healing Rain or Flow? Maybe it's fundamental, but
without something that interacts with the rest of the kit, it's kind of blasé. Like, it would just be an extra like little button to press, like Circle of Healing or something. But if it has some interaction with reducing Holy Word cooldowns, Salvation and stuff, then maybe. But at a base level, I don't think it adds anything to the kit. I mean, it definitely is an iconic priest ability from the past, but
yeah. I mean, no, it definitely is. It's in your class hall from last expansion. They're just sitting around, but we haven't had them in many moons. And then, Northern, we talked about Halinka a lot more earlier in the show. So we talked about different spells and things of that nature. Inner Fire is your last little tagline there on your question. That one's interesting. I don't know. That just comes into just maintenance on yourself, right? I mean, it's flavor, but Inner Fire was what? It was armor and spell power on the priest, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, I think later iteration, it used to just be the armor. And I think later iterations added the spell power.
Yeah. I guess because your question was that they don't really want to do, at least what Blizzard wants to go towards now, is that instead of every spec being its own class, like we have 36 classes in the game right now, essentially, barring a couple that might blur together a little bit. But it looks like Blizzard wants to bring back the fact that there are 12 that have slightly different flavors or roles. So like the confirmed ones here that I have in the notes was that Halinka's slides for Priest was that Mind Blast, Flash Shield, Shadow Word, Death were going baseline across the Priest class. So stuff like that is what they're looking at doing, is they're making it so that there's a Priest toolkit that's across all Priests or across all Mages or across all Hunters. And then there's always, flavor differences within each spec to differentiate them. But we'll definitely see. However, what should Blizzard do about Divine Star and Halo?
Yeah, that's a bit of an interesting row for Dick, because
it is.
back in MOP, you had and WAD, you had Cascade, Divine Star, Halo, and they all had their niche. You know, it was like if everyone's slightly spread. Yeah, if you can't actually get max range Halos on people, then Cascade would win out. If everyone's stacked, you take Divine Star. If you could actually get a lot of value out of the max range Halo, you take the Halo. It's kind of different now because Holy has Benediction in that row, and then Disc has Purge the Wicked in that row. Purge the Wicked is like been a bit of a problem child for Disc in terms of, you know, you always if there's a single other mob that Penance will cleave Purge the Wicked onto, you take Purge the Wicked.
Yeah.
Because it has added duration from Shadowword Pain on top of not needing to put the global into applying the dot. So it makes it difficult to want to take Divine Star or Halo. And then Holy Priest, it's a little bit more versatile because Benediction's super nerfed from its Legion iteration. I think the default a lot of the Holy Priests go to now is Halo. Just because the like max heal from Halo is not as drastically different from the min heal. So
Yeah, like to add to that, Benediction's like a trickle random heal. Like some pools it will maybe do more than Halo, but some pools it will do less, and it might not come in at a key damage point where it's useless. Where Halo is a nice little cooldown that can allow a predictable damage event to come in, and you just hit Halo to heal it up. So I think that's probably a good reason why a lot of players are playing Halo. But I guess if you're really struggling with mana, you could go for Benediction as well, since it doesn't require any mana like Halo does.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're really thinking about your mana, Benediction might be a play.
It's a tough one, yeah. I always thought Divine Star was just taken for like soloing and doing damage. That was the only place Divine Star ever played out in, because it was just the damage button or the extra damage button. And it was also the one that would necessarily not pull entire dungeons because Halo will literally hit things through walls and stuff. So
I think they've gotten a bit better about that this expansion. But
oh yeah.
those talents are not as potent as they were in like Benoit,
Yeah.
I believe. So that's with another reason that the other option that both priests got from removing Cascade has made them a bit more appealing, especially in just interactions that those talents have as well with the kits. Like Shadow Priests get extra damage procs, or sorry, Disc Priests get extra damage procs for Penance, based on the ticks of Purge the Wicked. And then back in Legion, Holy Priest Benediction had a lot of interaction with the artifact traits. So things like that take away value from Divine Star and Halo, because those two abilities are just they just interact with the base kit and don't do anything special. They just do healing compared to the other two.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Holinka definitely has his work cut out for him going into Shadowlands. There's a lot of stuff that is hoped for, and feedback will start soon enough. But I think that's about all the time that we have to chit chat in the main show about Discipline and Holy Priest. I got a couple of questions that I've got prepared for some after show bants, but that'll be moved to there. But I think that's gonna do it. Hunttay, do you have anything you want to leave the priest or healer community at large with? Any closing remarks, shout outs, things of that nature? Any soapbox, any moratoriums?
I would say don't let people influence your essence decisions on end boss progression.
Oh no.
You might forget about it. Yeah. I don't have much to say other than
Okay. I think our Discord, let me actually, so the closing here doesn't freak out, our Discord server might be a little bit, let's go over here. Here we go. You're super desynced. So yeah, don't be influenced by other people's essence decisions. So no CLF for Discipline Priest, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best choice, but yeah, definitely. I guess also just kind of take a grain of salt from what people are doing. You know, some people don't like to change,
Sure,
like what they are doing based on what other people are doing. But you know, it's very helpful to like watch what other people are doing and take that, add to what you're doing. There's like a lot to gain from just watching other people play as well as looking at logs. So
okay. TG, anything you want to close with moratorium, shout outs, anything like that you want to leave with the community with?
I'll just say that if you're one of those guilds that super hard in the meta and a nice looking holy priest comes by with an application, like you might want to give them a chance because holy can do it, you know what I mean? Like, so give the raiders a chance that don't play the meta specs, and you might actually find some quality little gems out there.
And now, if you were to say that without, I guess, slowing down your accent rampantness, if you want to leave something to the community in your normal tone, do you have anything you want to leave in pure Scottish?
Oh, I think I'll leave it at that. But there's a few Scottish fans watching here, so good to see that at least some of the viewers today have understood what I've said.
Yeah, hopefully at least 4 people have been able to glean. Yeah, at least 4. Alrighty. I'm gonna hit this button over here that does determine and show there it is. The show is ending. It was I almost cranked the volume up way loud all of a sudden there, and it played randomly in the earlier part of the show because I was moving scenes around. I hit the play button. My bad on that one. But thank you for joining me for episode number 212 for the Discipline and Holy Priest show. And again, like I said before, every spec was supposed to get a show, but we are getting into that Shadowlands alpha beta timeline right now, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish all of them. I do want to do a couple more of these before the madness starts, but of course, if you want to be a part of all the testing live streams that I'll be doing, and my ridiculously slow, methodical database checking, note taking, what changed, what's different, what's new, what's gone, what's removed, what's all that for every single spec of the game. That's what I'm gonna definitely be focusing on this time. So when that starts back up, I'll see you there for that. But around the table yet again here, there's Hunttay. You can go follow him over on his Twitch channel, and he has some interesting emotes and some interesting gameplay because he plays a discipline priest. That's really, you don't see that spec very often. It's super rare, right? I mean, yeah, it's new to the game.
And no one plays disc.
Yeah, no one plays discipline. But thank you for your time on the show today, sir. I appreciate you.
I'm happy to be here.
And then there's TG. Well, kind of. That's his priest from the game over on Discord at tg530. Or you can find him, of course. That's actually his character name in game. tg530, all typed out. But TG, thanks for being here today, sharing the Scottish side of things. Appreciate your time today, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
But like I said, next week we'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys know on Twitter. So follow the show at FinalBossTV over on Twitter if you want to know the shows that are coming up, or if you have suggestions, or I asked for guests sometime on there. Also on Facebook, if you do the Facebook, that's why I post when things go live or archives or whatnot. Of course, if you missed the whole live show, this whole thing goes up on YouTube, where everything is archived if you want to dive back into everything from the past or the side content that I put out. And that's where the testing, again, as I'm drilling in the whole Shadowlands back and forth, the testing live streams, the 3, 4, 5 hours, the dungeon runs, is all going to stay on Twitch and just be highlighted. But then I record like the one-man podcast talking head discussion, 30, 40, 50-minute live. I record them and just throw them up online. When I walk through all the different things that have changed, to go through all the cliff notes about what's new, different, and whatnot, that's all on YouTube. So that's just Final Boss WoW. Again, link down below here on Twitch, or just grab it on YouTube if you like. But that's it for today's show, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Trust in your guaranteed corrupted items to drop. I don't know what you're looking for. I'm looking for some expedience. If I get some expedience, some haste from gear, multiplicatives, that'd be great. Or some more racing pulses. Just don't give me more infinite stars. It's a meme. Well, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Until next week. Bye. Hunttay, give him the wave. Give him... How do you cast Divine Star in-game? There. Beautiful. He did it.